All right, and we are live. Good evening from back in the day, Mike. Hopefully your night's going pretty well.
Not too bad. I got this weird my glasses shadow. I'm just always so worried I look so bad that like my glasses shadows like cross my eye. If I sit like this,
Just a little bit. There you go. And just go like this and say the shadow
yeah, trying to make a point, I'm sideways.
no.
How are
Oh
you?
man. Oh, I'm doing pretty well. I am in home improvement mode. So right now, in fact, you can see the paint on my hands. So
Nice.
I finished redoing my deck about a week ago, and this week I am redoing the spare bathroom. The downstairs of our house doesn't get used much, so yeah, painting and putting a new vanity top in, and doing some wiring, and all kinds of good stuff.
Nice.
So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm in project mode. Yeah, so doing that and writing some curriculum for the school and
So that,
staying busy, for the most part.
say so
What about you?
that teacher summer vacation isn't really a vacation. It's just you gotta knock out all the honeydew lists that you've passed up for the last 9 months. Sorry, honey, I got to
We
grade some.
save it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got to grade some papers this weekend, but I'll get to it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you end up kind of saving it up, and so when the time comes, man, you're on like gangbusters. But I'm not a person who sits still. I really don't. Like you will not see me sit and lay. In fact, my wife tried to talk me out of doing the bathroom. I've been back and forth in school, and I'm in the middle of writing curriculum, and I'm always back the beginning of August, no matter what. First week of August, I'm back. And she said, your time is very limited. She said, why don't you take a couple days and not do anything? Now, this was in June when we wrapped up. And that was on a Thursday. And Friday, by the lunchtime, I was tearing the deck apart. So that shows you how much that
Somebody's got to
sit
do
and
it.
wait around. This is true. I'm better when I'm busy. I'm happier that way. So, but no complaints whatsoever.
Good.
So, but at any rate, so tonight we are getting sidetracked. It's usually what happens at the beginning of the show. So we're on track now. So we're tonight we're going to be tackling action movies. A little bit of everything. A little bit of action movies, maybe some genre action movies, maybe even time period, and even get into some famous actors in action movies as well as famous stuntmen and stuntwomen as well. It's going to be a part of it. So um,
It'll be
kind of
fun.
excited about it. Yeah, yeah. I mean, definitely right in the wheelhouse as far as the era when I grew up and went through movies. Um, but as far as the newer stuff goes, I try and keep track of these things, and it's a deep dive, very quick deep dive. How quickly thing we have turnaround on movies these days compared to what we used to. So, all right, we got a couple people commenting in here. We got good evening, Nate and Michael. I'm assuming that's probably our good man Vic.
Yeah, let me see who's.
Pull him up. So,
Back in the day.
have you ever taught? I got a question. Have you ever taught summer school, Nate? Good question. I have never taught summer school. I'm an elementary teacher, and being an elementary teacher, that isn't something that's really an option until kids are like more, I guess, what you call middle school. We used to call junior high and high school. However, being a teacher, you aren't exactly off all summer. You're often doing things either at home or coming in. Right now, I'm in the middle of writing curriculum, so that's doing a lot of on my end, which is nice. I can, especially with the computer age, I can kind of do it from home. I don't necessarily have to go into school. We go in and do meet periodically and connect through Zoom as well. But,
It's a good movie. You ever see movie Summer School? Mark Harmon.
oh yes, absolutely, yeah, very good movie. That was, I believe, for their field trip, they went to the amusement park. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah. And the two kids that are horror fans,
Yeah.
and the one's got
Oh yes,
Chainsaw. He's got the Jaws 2 poster above his bed. I always thought that was cool. I
Chainsaw.
went to summer school between my junior and senior year because I wanted to be a teacher's assistant in drama, but I had one more math requirement that I had to take care of. So I did it during summer school. And it was just like, I should take all my courses because basically you went in, you read, you took the test, but you had the stuff you read right there on the test. So I was like, oh yeah. So, yeah. So I enjoyed it. We didn't get to go to the amusement park, but I had a good summer school experience. I remember the big song that summer was Telephone Man by Mary Wells. You know, I got it with the buzz and I got it with the, and it's like, oh God, everywhere I went, I heard that. But that song reminds me of the summer of '77. Also
Wow.
Star Wars in the Deep. So
Summer Star Wars. Yeah. So someone's saying I did. Someone went to summer school in '87. So somebody had a rough year that year. So I have to admit, I actually went to summer school one year. I was horrendous when it came to reading. ADHD. One of the reasons why I don't sit still very often, and one of the big things that often affects is your reading comprehension. And I struggled at times through things, and didn't do so well the one year, and ended up going to summer school that summer to make it up and to bring things up. And my mom reminds me of this all the time. When I finished it, she said, "So what did you think of summer school?" I guess she was thinking she was going to get a philosophical, report or something like that, or man, I really learned my lesson, or and the response that she constantly reminds me of, you came home and said, "Well, if I'm going to summer school again, I'm not going to go in the afternoon. I'm going to go in the morning before it gets really hot in the building." Not the answer she wanted to hear.
Well, you were thinking outside the box.
Yeah. I was thinking, all right. I don't know how much I was thinking, but I was thinking. So, at any rate, let's get the ball rolling here, talking about hit some action movies here, Mike. So, I tried to look at some different time periods, and I tried to look at action movies have always been around. I think they've taken on different looks, and I think they've taken on almost different genres as far as being action movies. Looking at like the 1960s, I think is when we really started to, I think maybe coin the term action film. Does that make sense to you?
It does, because I think a lot of the films, especially the late '40s and the '50s, as far as action, it was all war movies. They were playing all these, war movies about, from World War II, and this happened here, this happened there. And then I think I see you got Dr. No up there. I think with the advent or the introduction of James Bond, they saw that was another genre that would make money, and it was entertaining because you always, you wanted to be, you always say Sean Connery was the man every woman wanted, and the man every man wanted to be. And so, my dad, that's all I remember seeing at the drive-in when I was in the '60s were James Bond, John Wayne, and Clint Eastwood films. And once it was a double feature of a movie with the movie called The Reavers, which was Steve McQueen, who we also liked. So, I got my love, I guess, of action films from my dad, because that's all we went to see.
That's pretty much where I came up with it, and it would have been your westerns. So, yeah, and Clint Eastwood to this day, probably my top actor, probably my number one actor. If I had to pick one of all time, I got to say Clint Eastwood takes me right back to my childhood, whether it was the spaghetti westerns, whether it was the Dirty Harry films, whether it was, Any Which Way You Can films. I just grew up with such a love for that and for him. And so, and he, really kind of cut his teeth there in the '60s, coming out with the spaghetti westerns. But, that was a birth of like 007 films. We got some classic stuff, like you said, like Bullet, the Italian Job. But yeah, I think the '60s is really kind of when it started to make its way, is with that particular um, genre. And then in my mind,
maybe
at least,
I would say maybe Death Wish.
yeah,
That was
yeah,
kind of
I
the
think
more
definitely,
Steve McQueen in The Getaway. Yes.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, McQueen. I mean, you had a lot of heavy hitters that were showing up, regardless as to whether it was, maybe like a cop film or maybe like a western. You tended to have some of the same guys, or in like you said, the military films, huge. Definitely guys like McQueen, even like John Wayne. In that era, which were before my time, definitely things that I've seen, and obviously were immensely popular. And getting in the '70s, I think we started to see a little bit more variety of that. A little bit more of the start of some of your action. I don't necessarily your action heroes. I don't think that was, at least I remember, being a thing until perhaps the '80s because it became so big. But you know, so the names that you're rattling off and some of the pictures we have here, guys from the '70s, definitely. I mean, Eastwood. We got Bruce Lee, who came up through in the '60s. We've got uh, all many different James Bonds, but obviously Roger Moore would have been your '70s guys. You know, different characters like Rocky, all these different guys. I mean, you really start to look for them in different films as opposed to, I don't know if you want to say, being typecast as one particular actor.
Is that the Warriors in between
Yeah,
Eastwood and Bruce Lee? Yeah.
that is the Warriors. Yeah, which again, I guess it's hard to classify as an action film, but technically it's what it
A lot
is.
of action.
Yeah, I mean, even The Godfather. I guess we have some action going on in there, as opposed to just being a drama. Yes, absolutely. So it kind of blurs the edges. What are you going to call an action film, and what are you not going to call an action film? And I also tend to think that a lot of these went off and started to very much diversify rather than the same typical types of films. They started to branch out a little more, take a little bit more. A little more liberty. And I attribute a lot of that to some of the directors. I mean, in my mind, in the '70s, we had some of the best film directors come out of all time. And it just happened to be the same group of guys. And I think that we have to go and give credit to those guys for that.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have any favorite ones of the '70s there, Mike?
Obviously, the Dirty Harry films, the original Death Wish, Rocky 1 and 2, the later James Bond, especially Spy Who Loved Me. They just, there's, even Jaws. You can call Jaws an action film, I guess, if you really wanted to.
Action adventure, perhaps. Sure. A couple others I was looking at, like Apocalypse Now and things of that nature. There's action in there, so I guess you could technically classify.
Yeah, war film. I would consider a war film as action. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Urban Allen disaster films of the '70s.
Yeah. Poseidon Adventure, Towering Inferno.
Sure.
The Swarm. I was just talking to a friend like an hour ago about The Swarm. Yeah.
Star Wars. Yeah, I guess you could include that in there. Again, there's a lot of action going on in there, so it's kind of hard as to where you distinguish what is and what isn't. So, yeah, very much. And '80s, in my mind, is when someone says action hero or action, film. This is what sticks in my mind, probably because that's when it really started to become a big commodity. I mean, we had some serious action stars coming out and reprising roles where I think in the '70s you started to get that reprising roles, but not nearly as widespread as what it was in the '80s. I don't know if that's what people started to realize the money could be made on it, or started to idolize these characters more, but really started to take off. And I really tried to throw a real mix of some in there, and some very obvious ones, actors and characters, and some that maybe not as obvious, or maybe not as obvious to me. So,
trying to figure out who's who here. Top left corner. Huh. Who is that?
That I can't think of his name. Trying to think of the movie
Not Fred Williamson. Looks like Richard Pryor, but I remember Richard Pryor doing an
now.
action film.
No, that's not Richard Pryor. I'm horrible with names. I'm gonna have to look it up.
Got American Werewolf,
Mm-hmm.
Predator, Tango and Cash.
Of course, Chuck Norris, who came
Oh,
up.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That is. Oh, I apologize. It looked like David Naughton during the transformation scene. That's the Roadhouse. Roadhouse.
Oh, sure.
Yes, we had a guy that came out and fixed our air conditioning. His name was Dalton. I said, really? I said, your parents Roadhouse fans? He goes, yeah. I said, dude, that's cool. That's cool. You're Dalton. Nobody will mess with you.
Did he give you the catchphrase? Did he say "Be nice until it's time to not
be nice"? That's right. Predator, Tango, and Cash. The StreamYard logo is blocking it, but I think that's Chuck Norris.
Yes, it is Chuck Norris. You're right. Yeah.
Die Hard. Is that Clash of Titans?
Yes.
Is that American Ninja? Michael Dudikoff?
Mm-hmm.
Mad Max. Highlander.
The Highlander. Yeah.
I always thought it was great that the only Scotsman in the film was playing a Spaniard. Red Heat. Anything with Steven Seagal. Raiders, RoboCop, and Big Trouble, Little China?
I believe so.
Or The Thing?
Yeah.
Well, he didn't have a beard. Yeah.
No, he had a beard in The Thing. Yes.
Yeah.
So we got
great choices, though. A great assortment, and it proves that all action films aren't the same, because each of these, they have action, but they also have, entirely different plots.
Yeah, completely. And that's why I said I think it really started in the 70s. You started to see that kind of branch out and really diversify completely different areas. And you had some that you absolutely loved, at least some that I loved. I can go back now to this day and rewatch, and then you have some that watched them and loved them at the time, but now I'm like, I don't think so, not so much. So
Victor, I think you're right. I think that is Michael Biehn. I thought it was, from where I'm sitting, I thought it was Mel Gibson, early Mad Max, but yes, I will say that is Michael Biehn. So good catch. That's a Victor's fact. Good catch.
And the top left, was that from the movie Shaft? Is that who that is?
Could be Richard Roundtree.
Is that who that is?
Could be. Yeah. We'll say it is.
Okay, we'll roll with that.
Richard Roundtree from Shaft, or Shaft Goes to Africa, one or the other. So yeah.
Hey, Antonio's in.
Antonio, how are you doing? Yeah. Welcome. Who else hopped on? I know Kelly hopped on. No, Robert hopped on. Matt Drenenberg.
Matt's on. Good to see you as well, Matt. Yeah, very nice. Couple
I'm sorry, Matt. Oh, that was a Matt Drenenberg catch.
Oh, it wasn't Vic. Oh,
yes.
That's
a Matt. That's a Matt fact. Sorry, I wasn't looking at the comments on my phone. I was just looking at the Facebook user. So, no good.
And there's a bunch you could rattle off here, but it's really kind of hard to catch. I mean, I think 80s into probably your early to mid 90s was probably prime time for a lot of these guys. There were some that were good films, and maybe it was like once and done, like Flash in the Pan, or didn't have a lot of these. Of what you're looking at here, all ended up being series or the same character per se, or character actors showing up in multiple films.
Mm-hmm.
I was going through and coming up with some pictures and movies that I remember enjoying. Things like Iron Eagle and things of that nature, which were great films for the time period. I can't tell you the last time I've actually come across them at all, but when people talk about it, when it comes up, people go, I remember that film, that was with Louis Gossett Jr. and,
Jason Gedrick.
There's so many out there to pick and choose from, and sounds like you owe somebody.
No, Matt and I, growing up in Tampa, we had a friend that always wanted to do stuff. But if
Uh
he'd
huh.
say, "Hey, let's do this," he'd say, "Well, I guess because he had a car before we did. I guess we go for gas money." Yeah, so it's an inside joke.
Very nice. Very nice. So, yeah. All right. So, roll up here. So, who was your favorite actor? If you had to name one or two, regardless of the time period, regardless of the genre, who's your favorite actor? And let's hear from some of you guys at home too. Chime in. Who's your favorite action hero actor? Like again, I tried to throw a bunch of different ones up on here. You might have someone that's not on there. Maybe we hit it, maybe we didn't. So I already mentioned Clint Eastwood. Uh, Heads and tails by far. You know, I have to say him above and beyond. I've just seen his things so many times, know so many of his single one-liners, and still greatly appreciate his dry humor. I have to go with him as a number one. But you have anyone in particular?
Just because of my almost lifelong association with them in one way or another, I have to say Roy Scheider and Richard Dreyfuss. I was first in line to see everything they've done, everything they do. I know when Richard was here in March, he had two movies coming out, and his wife said, "Don't forget to go see this. It opens April 4th. Don't forget to go see this." But on the list, you've got Stallone, obviously. Um, I enjoyed Bronson.
Yes.
And a lot of these guys were kind of pigeonholed um, as action stars, but Bronson had some chops. I can't remember
Really
the
did.
name of the movie, and you might know it because he played like the union leader of Pennsylvania miners,
Oh,
of coal
not
miners.
familiar with that one.
It was an HBO movie, but he was so good. Um,
Not not familiar with that one at all. Wow.
yeah. John Cena, I think, is funny. Harrison Ford, obviously.
Hmm.
Keanu Reeves. Kurt Russell, yes, I still think he should have played Batman at one point.
That would have put a swing on things.
Yeah.
Batman with a Batman with a cocky attitude. That would have been a lot of fun.
Yeah. He would have been more, I think, more like the Michael Keaton Batman than like the Christian Bale Batman, but I like the Michael Keaton Batman, so.
Yeah, yeah. So we got one for Harrison Ford. Anyone else? You guys at home? Come on, let's name a couple actors here. We're looking for actors. Favorite actors from action heroes. I've always enjoyed. I've always enjoyed Sylvester Stallone. I think always did some really good roles, and some that you don't hear about too much. I was a big fan of Nighthawk when I was a kid.
Of
I
which?
thought that was Nighthawk.
Oh, yeah. Rutger Hauer. Yes.
Rutger Hauer. I mean, yes, and Billy D. Williams was
Billy D.
his partner. Yes,
Wolfgar. Yes.
great film. Great film going on there. Early Steven Seagal was really good before he tried to turn himself into godlike status.
Yes.
These early films were some good stuff going on there and some crazy scenes. Some of the things that he did before it got a little too carried away.
But Steven Seagal also surrounded himself with better actors. So he could go in there and break someone's arm and throw out some one-liners, and he got like somebody William Forsythe, carrying the film.
Sure.
Jet Li, I thought was entertaining. Jackie Chan, Dwayne Johnson, I think is good. Jason Statham, I just saw the poster for the Meg 2.
Yes. Yeah, he was always good. Has a little colorful part to him. Carl Weathers. I had to put him up. And he did some great films. And unfortunately, his big breakout role, Action Jackson, I remember going to see it in the theaters, didn't do so well.
But I liked it. It was entertaining.
I did too.
It was going to be it was going to be like his Dirty Harry. It was going to be his tent peg, and they never, or tent pole, tent peg, but they just never I don't know if it just never caught on but I thought it was entertaining. I mean, everybody
Oh
up here
yeah,
has made at least one entertaining film.
sure. Oh yeah, yeah. Whether you're a fan of the actor or not, you could probably rattle off a film or two that you just simply enjoyed. Oh my God, I couldn't name just two. I love Roy Scheider since I saw him in Seven Up's great film. Yeah, Seven Up's and French Connection. Love both those films.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
Gene Hackman. There's another one. Yeah, and Dreyfus, American Graffiti. Kurt Russell. Yeah, Kurt Russell
yeah.
always
That's
did a lot of
Matt loves Gene Hackman.
yeah. Hackman did a lot of good, and he could play a lot of roles. He could be a bit of a chameleon when it came to what he was doing. He wasn't necessarily always the cop, or I mean, what was the movie that he played with Will Smith where he was like a conspiracy theorist?
Oh, Enemy of the State.
Yes,
Enemy of the State. Yeah. Even
hiding away
from the conversation, he was just, the guy with the listening device. He was
sure. Marathon Man.
Marathon Man. Yeah, Scheider.
Yeah, yeah. I think he had some pretty good films too. Across all different genres. Wesley Snipes has done some really good stuff, and I don't. Now that I'm thinking about his name pops in my head, I didn't put him on there.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought he had some good stuff. My wife, believe it or not, is probably the biggest, probably 80s and 90s action fan film that I know. I mean, she just still has on DVD, all different series of the action films to the point where I'm almost like, okay, I need a break from it. I need to move on. She is an enormous fan. She loves going back and, whether it's some of the 80s cop films, whether it's more of the, some of the more adventure type films. Huge fan on that stuff.
And Tom Cruise, who inspired this episode with just the stuff he did in the last Mission Impossible. That guy is death defying. I've seen they've released some like behind the scenes stuff with some of his stunts, and it's amazing that the studio allows him to do it. Though he produces the films now, so he only has to answer to himself. But I'm sure it's hard to get insurance. We're going to do this, and I'm going to ride a motorcycle over a cliff. So,
Silver Streak. Now, there's a name of a film I haven't seen in a long time. I'm not sure who put that on there, but yeah, you're going back a ways. Very good stuff. Die Hard series. Yeah, that's very good series of films. I know my wife's a big fan of those as well. What else we got? There she is, actually, the Bourne Identity series.
Bourne Identity, yeah. And Antonio Silver Streak, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Victor, Bruce Willis, the Die Hard series.
Mm-hmm.
Jenny, the Bourne Identity series. Wasn't there like one that he wasn't in? It was like Jeremy Renner was like little like Baby Born or something.
Yes, it was like took place over in Europe somewhere.
Stallone over the top. Oh, come on, Victor.
You're reaching for straws here.
It's just it's like I never knew what his name was because sometimes they called him Hawk and sometimes they called him Hawks. So it was like, who are you talking to? Plus, his son was the annoying kid that played Mikey on General Hospital, and I hated him. So there. Jeremy Renner. Okay, thank you.
Jeremy Renner. What else we got?
George Bush is director, produced, but never act. I guess he should give back that acting Oscar then. Yeah.
What was the one movie that he was in? I tried to sit and watch it. Apparently, the book was phenomenal, and it was what was it called? Men That Stare at Goats or something like that.
Oh yeah, it was all right. It was different.
But I think you had to know a little background to really appreciate it. It's kind of, I don't know. I associate things like that with like I was a big Office fan. Watching The Office, and if you didn't know the characters in The Office and know some of the situational comedy there, you could sit there and watch it, just not get it. And so I think movies like that helps to know.
Yeah, Clooney did something called The American, and then it was just terrible. And then I saw it was filmed in Italy, so I figured he was home on vacation, so I'll make some money and make this crappy movie. So yeah.
Damon blames Renner
Hammer.
for the
Yeah.
franchise. Wow, did not know that. Interesting little fact there.
It was really Jeremy Renner. What, except for the Avenger films, he's not like box office name.
No. Although, have you seen any interviews with him since his recovery from his snowplow accident?
Yeah.
I mean, holy cow, what he went through and what he's recovering from is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Well, I'm sure it helps that he was doing the Avenger films because his body is probably, much younger than he is. If that was me, I'd just be dead because snowplow would just kill me. I wouldn't, like, hey, you got me. They call the Bourne Identity the boring identity. Yeah, Victor. Should have known.
The one thing I didn't think to put in here too, but it has some relevance, especially we're talking about 80s and 90s, is all the spoofs and all the parodies of the 80s and 90s films, action films like Hot Shots and Hot Shots Part 2 and The Naked Gun. I mean, I don't know about you, very much appreciated those. And when the Naked Gun films would come out, we would go to the theater to see them because they were hysterical.
They were funny.
Yeah.
It was a great TV show. I want to say it's very early 1982, called Police Squad, that I think lasted 6 episodes, but it was the same kind of humor. And, the big thing about it is every week they had a special guest star. And, like we used to watch the FBI, they'd have this, tonight's guest star, so-and-so. And then they would show that person being killed in the unusual way. And I guess the week after he passed away, Belushi was supposed to, John Belushi, not Jim Belushi, who's still with us, was supposed to be the special guest star. And they've never aired it. They've never.
No kidding.
Yeah. But it was a funny show.
It was, and I've seen a couple of the originals because I didn't realize. I think I've told the story before, but a friend of mine I worked with at the dealership was a big TV nut, and he said, we were talking about the Naked Gun movie. He said, it's based off a TV show. And one day over lunch, he brought in a video cassette tape of 1 or 2 of the episodes. I had no idea that it was tied into a TV show. And then the fact that Belushi was going to be on it, that's pretty incredible. Pretty incredible. What we got here? Hey, Mike and Nate, you should go to Hawaii with the McNeil fans.
Big Exorcist fan. Exorcist is kind of an action film.
Yeah, I guess you could classify it as that. It really kind of blurs your edges there. So
yeah.
Welcome, Jenny and Jane.
Father Karras had to get out of that window somewhere. He had to run. So
hey, I mean, he was trained. I mean, he was boxing all through that movie. I mean,
there you go. There's the action right there.
He was a fit guy. Yeah. We got Clooney shows his acting chops, and oh brother, where art thou? That he does. And he does. Not his singing chops, but it's definitely his acting chops. Clooney's done a lot of good stuff. He really
yeah.
Can't pigeonhole him as Batman. Leave it at that. He's done a lot of good
He's like, to me, he's, every generation kind of has, like in the golden age, you had Orson Welles, who wrote, directed, produced, and acted. 70s and 80s up to the mid 90s, you had Warren Beatty. And now I think you have Clooney, because Clooney has done it all, and he's been, nominated. I think Orson Welles, Warren Beatty, and George Clooney are the only people who have been nominated in all 4 of those categories. And that's an amazing achievement, especially, a guy that, used to be on the Facts of Life. So
I had no idea. Mike's Facts going on there. I had no clue he was nominated in every category. No whatsoever.
Yeah, he was like the handyman, I think.
Yeah. Well, I did want to kind of shed a little bit of light on not just the actors, but the actual stunt people themselves. in the world of music, they're known as the hired guns or the unknown guns. Or you get these studio musicians that lay down this famously, recorded solos and songs and melodies,
The
and you
Wrecking
really
Crew.
never know, yeah, who it comes from, and Muscle Shoals, and all these different people, and in the acting world, same thing, and myself included, really know very little as far as certain names that pop up with some of these very, very famous stunt people, and so I started to do a little deep dive, and some of these people have such a following, and there's fan dedication pages, there's websites dedicated to these people that you can get on and follow and interact, and it's really amazing because I think as a general public, myself included, simply not all that familiar. For me, when I see a picture of them, or you definitely know the films that they've done, but
Mhm.
necessarily don't know all that much about them. And so I pulled a couple up here, of note. So Vic Armstrong, we have Kitty O'Neill, Gene Coulter, um, Dar Robinson, and Wendy Leach seem to be ones that really, really stood out when I was going through and doing some research on some of these. When you look at the movie list, it's ridiculous. Not just I shouldn't say movie list. I should say the acting list, because we're talking about movies, we're talking about TV shows, serials, even at times sitcoms that what these people have been in and done. It really, really is amazing. And I was familiar with maybe two of these before I started doing a deep dive, and that was I was familiar with Kitty O'Neill and Gene Coulter, just because Gene Coulter, I mean, Jaws 2, it's right there, with the server. And then you go down and look at everything else that she's done. And absolutely incredible. The list just goes on and on and on. Most of these, they span over decades. Um, and it kind of makes you wonder, number one, how do you even get into it? Because, people go to acting school, do you go to school to be a stunt person? Not something I'm familiar with or aware of.
Well, I know. I mean, Dar Robinson is probably the best known because he did some, and I'm sure that's Victor pointing that out. Um, there's is it called? It's a movie called Sharky's Machine. Burt Reynolds directed it,
Burt Reynolds. Hmm.
and um, he goes out. He goes out a window at the top of the. I want to say it's whatever building Ted Turner's stuff was, CNN Tower, maybe, or maybe I'm thinking of the CN Tower in Toronto. But he
Hmm.
goes out the window backwards and he drops, I don't know, 40 stories into the big airbag. And it's just like, oh my God, and it's like, he really did that. And then, the sad, ironic thing about Dar Robinson is he was uh, on a movie set, just riding a motorcycle around, and he stopped and he was too close to the edge of something and he fell over and died. Um, Obviously, Jeannie, Jeannie was, in the 60s and the 70s, and, she did all the stunts in Charlie's Angels. And obviously, the speedboat driver in Jaws 2. And then Kitty O'Neill. I think those three there in the middle are really the most, if you ask someone if they had to name a stunt person, these would be the three names that would come out of their mouth. And I think it's been so long since I've read about Kitty O'Neill, but I think she was deaf.
She was.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, she was deaf, and I'm not sure how, or I don't know if she was born that way. I don't know if something happened, but her background, which the only reason I'm familiar with her, was in Cars. I mean, she was labeled the fastest woman on earth for decades. I mean, she had land speed records that weren't broken until maybe the last 5 to 7 years, Mike. She dabbled a little bit with drag racing. I'm pretty sure, you're talking about land speed records. You're talking about like salt flats and those kind of things. She really, I think, if she never got into film or TV, that she still would have. I mean, very big career. Um, and yeah, she was deaf. at least as an adult, I don't know as a child. But some of the things. I mean, some of the things that she did, like I just little things like Wonder Woman. I can remember she did a lot of the Wonder Woman stunts. I have to pull up some of these other guys. But yeah, Dar Robinson, you said died in a motorcycle accident. Apparently, what happened was he was supposed to hit the brakes to stop on the edge, and he hit the throttle instead. And
Oof.
not that makes it that he made a dumb move. It shows you how serious these jobs were, and how dangerous these jobs were that these people had.
I'm trying to think who told me. Someone told me a story that Marlon Brando directed a movie called One Eyed Jacks, and there was a scene where these guys rob the bank and they set it on fire and they run out. And Brando wanted more fire, so they put oil there and on the porch area, the front of the bank. And one of the stuntmen running out slipped on the oil and ended up paralyzed. I don't, and there's a great film called The Stuntman, came out in 1980 with Peter O'Toole, that really gives a good look behind the scenes of the way they set these things up. And these actors like Tom Cruise that do this stuff, when they know there's professionals out there, it just amazes me. Actually, somewhere downstairs, Scheider was made an honorary stuntman. I've got his membership card in the Stuntman's Association for his work on Jaws. Yeah, it's I think Burt Reynolds used to work as a stuntman.
Yes, I believe that's how he started.
But it's just got to take an amazing toll on your body. Even falling down the stairs, or riding a motorcycle into the side of a car and flying over the top. It's yeah.
And Vic Armstrong, who was responsible for like the Superman movies, like Indiana Jones, just highlights some bigger ones. The lady on the end, Wendy Leach, was married. They were married. They were a married couple, and I mean, she was responsible. She did a lot of the female stunt acting, like in Star Wars movies and movies of that genre. So imagine what a dinner conversation was like at night with those two after work.
Yeah.
How's your day today?
I'm sore. I was working in the garage. I'm sore. Really? I just jumped off a 40-story building. Yeah. Because I want to say, like, the big stunt person now, Ted Grossman.
Ted Grossman.
I think the big stunt person now is his name's Zoe Bell. She was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She was Kurt Russell's wife that didn't like Brad Pitt, and then she did all her stunts when Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez did their double feature, Terror Planet, and Victor, help me out. What was whichever Tarantino's entry was? She did all the stunts where she's on the top of a car and everything else. She's like the big stunt person now.
Wasn't a vampire film, was it?
No, that was From Dusk Till Dawn. Yeah. It was like Planet Terror and damn, it's gonna bother me. Victor, help me out here. What was the film that the Tarantino part of the double feature? So yeah, but she did all those crazy car stunts, where she's on the hood of a 69 Challenger going down a road at 150 miles an hour. Yes, obviously the Bond stunt people, especially as the films progressed. The opening, you can tell if it's going to be a good Bond film or not by the opening sequence before you get to the credits. So they always kind of up the action. Kill Bill series, yes.
Yes. There you go. Uma Thurman, yeah. So if you guys ever get a chance to look some of these names up and just look at the list of movies and TV shows these guys. I mean, it is. I just tried to scratch the surface just so I would maybe sound like a little bit of information. It is unbelievable how quickly you can go down rabbit holes on these people. And there are pages out there you can go, and I found pages on Gene Coulter. I found pages on Video O'Neill. I found pages on Dory Robinson. Apparently, is like number one. He's in like the Guinness books. Like he is above everything. And he's the guy that he did the walk around. Was it the CBS building I read? Apparently, did a walk around the edge of the building. No net, no harness, no anything. So,
not me.
I would imagine if you had, do you ever have that one friend who was just not quite wired like the rest of you were, and who would take crazy, crazy risks to do really what you would consider now to be stupid things? I would imagine that you had to have that personality to do what these people do on a daily basis.
You've got to have that fearless streak, because I think obviously you have to plan out your stunts and what you're going to do, but I don't think you can worry about it, because if you worry about it, I think you take precaution, or maybe you shouldn't have, or you second guess yourself.
Yeah. Late great Dick Butler in Jaws, being eaten alive in Jaws. 30 years. Yeah. And it's amazing that some of these people, live to ripe old age. You would think that, it would maybe shorten your lifespan a little bit, or at least really affect your day-to-day life as you get older. The human body can only take so much. In fact, we were talking earlier about Burt Reynolds. The movie he did, I believe, was called Hooper. And he was a stuntman in the movie. And he was if I remember the premise of the movie, doctors were coming to him and saying, look, here's the deal. You're done. Your body can't take this anymore. You're going to be paralyzed, something to the extent. And he had this big money shot. He was supposed to jump a car over this bridge, and they were telling him he wasn't going to be able to do it, and he couldn't do it. And
Hooper.
Hooper, yep.
I just watched that the other night. It was on cable.
I haven't seen that in forever, but that was, that's exactly what that was about. It was about the life of a stuntman, and him taking that risk that one last time to finish that great jump scene at the, over the bridge or over those barrels as they exploded, at the risk of paralyzing himself or killing himself, and definitely rings true.
And talking about safety, there was a stunt woman named Heidi von Beltz in the early 80s. And I bring this up because when I interviewed Jeannie for the Jaws 2 book, she told me how dangerous stunts were. And Jeannie had been asked to, I don't know who she was supposed to double for in Cannonball Run. And they told her the stunt, they told her what they were going to do, and she didn't think it was safe. And so this other woman took it, and the van rolled over. She did not have the proper restraints, and she ended up, paralyzed, for the next 30 years till she died. So, yeah, it's, I couldn't, I'm afraid now. I go outside, and sometimes I got to go check on something in someone's yard, and they've just got that little 3-foot high stone wall around their house, and I won't even jump off that anymore. You normally just hop off. Now it's like, oh, let me get down. Yeah.
I don't know. I tend to still be a little bit of a thrill seeker when it comes to certain things. I have a group of friends of mine that we still go out mountain biking. Something I love. I grew up on a bike, and we actually go out nighttime riding. We put big bright LED lights on our helmets when we go out on the trails at night. But that's about as adventurous as the idea of jumping a car, 3 feet off the ground, let alone over, another vehicle or really, any of those things. How on earth you walk away from that, first of all, and feel okay the next day and be able to get out of bed. And, as you get older, it's not like when you're 18, you bounce back. You get out of bed the next day and you go, what the hell did I do yesterday? And yet be okay with getting up the next day and doing it again.
Yes.
You know,
I think the jumping off the Jaws Bridge in 2 years, that's going to be my last stunt.
I'm holding you to that, Mike.
Yeah. I'm going to have my son there and my grandson. So
I
we'll all
got
do it together.
I got my 79-year-old father-in-law to jump with me last year. So very cool stuff. In fact, that's my wife saying Nate's key phrase is doable. If I try and talk someone into something, that's what I'll say. Perfectly doable. So
it's doable. There you go.
So we will definitely jump the bridge. Evel Knievel.
Oh,
yeah, Evel Knievel Evel Knievel had the attitude to back up the actions. He was a guy who lived it through and through. I mean, Mike, I'm sure you remember, what was it? He was getting bad-mouthed and then ended up, I can't remember if he sued or if he was being sued and chased the litter down with a baseball bat.
Oh, wow.
Because of what happened and broke the guy's arm. And Evel Knievel was the real deal. He was I guess you could call it a confirmed badass. He didn't put up with anything from anyone, and that was his attitude. His son just passed away the last couple of years.
Robbie,
yeah, passed away as well. Very young. Leave it that early. So, well, so how about some actual actors that are well known for doing a lot of their own stunts? Definitely some of the ones we talked about so far. Ones that you really hit on, and again, some of these people got their start doing it before they got into the action films. That being Burt Reynolds, that's what he got his start out doing. I know Harrison Ford is known for being a real risk taker. Despite having people who stand in for him, he was not afraid to do a lot of different things, which was
Well, I think that
very admirable.
In Raiders, when he's got the whip around the truck and he has to work his way down under the truck. I mean, I'm sure the truck wasn't going 50 miles an hour, but that was him doing that, and that was a takeoff on an old Yakima Canutt stunt under a stagecoach, in the 30s. But all these guys. Statham does it. Tom Cruise, obviously. Jackie Chan. There's somebody that
Jackie Chan.
Yeah, there's somebody that I'm surprised can walk, because all that stuff he used to do.
And
he was also
what he would do is always
an acrobat.
Yeah. And there's some older ones and some newer ones there too. The bottom right hand corner, that is, I believe, Buster Keaton. Have you ever seen any of his old black and whites? We're talking before they had talkies, which were the movies that had audio in them. The stuff that he did, if you've never seen it, you've got to get on and watch. It was unbelievable.
Because they didn't have the visual effects then. They did it. If he's driving a car, down the road and has to walk around the outside of it, he does it. If he's got is it the General with the train?
Was he sitting on the train? Oh yeah.
Harold Lloyd did a film called Safety Last, and you've probably seen the iconic photo where he's hanging from the hand of a giant clock, and that was him. They didn't have stunt people back then. They didn't have green screen. All that stuff is it's amazing that, at least you don't hear about it, but it's amazing that more people weren't killed, back in the days of silent films, because that was how you got the audience's attention. If you're going to, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to jump a car, we're going to, fight a lion.
And I tell you, the one that he did that always gets me to this day, because when you watch it, you realize you've got one shot at this. It's one where he's standing and the entire side of the building falls.
Yes.
And as it falls, he's standing either in a doorway or a window. How the hell they pulled that off? And he stood there and was going, "Okay, guys, let's roll." I have no idea.
Yeah, because like I said, you have no margin for error.
No.
I don't know if they laid it down and then he stood there and marked where he had to stand, but yeah, when you see that, it's like, oh my goodness, how did he?
Got a question. Did Buster Keaton do his own stuff? Yes, that's what we're talking about.
Yes, he did.
He did. He did all of his own stunts, and in fact, you look up famous stuntmen. He actually comes up, despite the fact he was a regular actor as well.
Every year in Kansas, they have the Buster Keaton Film Festival. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Good. And some of the newer ones, is it bottom next to him is that I can't think of her name, Margot. She's in the new. Let's see, she's in the new Barbie movie. Is it Margot? Not Margot Kidder. What is her name?
Oh, Margot Robbie.
Margot Robbie. Apparently, she does an awful lot of her own stunts. She was in Batman, or not the Batman film. What was she in?
Oh, Harley Quinn.
Yeah, she plays Harley Quinn, but it wasn't
Suicide Squad.
That's what it was. Suicide Squad. Apparently, she does a lot of her own. I'm so horrible with names. The girl right above her, Kick-Ass was what I first saw her in. She's done a bunch of different films.
Is that Chloe Grace Moretz?
Yes. Apparently does a lot of her own.
Nicolas Cage's daughter in Kick-Ass?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
She was very young when she started that.
Yeah.
Apparently she does an awful lot or most of her own action as well. And she's very young. I mean, what is she? Maybe in her early 20s now? Mid-20s at best. So, yeah, definitely. And, as much as I am not a huge Tom Cruise fan, I'm a fan of Tom Cruise's movies, not the biggest of Tom Cruise at times. He probably stands out as say now, the fact that he's still doing it at his age with what he's doing. He just had the new Mission Impossible come out. The fact that
every movie he ups the ante. He's like, okay, I did this. The last Mission Impossible, he was holding on to the outside of a 747 door and took off. And the one where he's in Dubai and he's walking around, running around the outside of the building. It's like,
Question: did Scarlett Johansson do her own stunts? I honestly don't know. Don't have an answer to that one. Hard to say. What else do we have?
I'm sure they do some of the basic stuff, but I'm sure she's not doing the flips and the kicks and stuff.
Right. Or you get into some of the explosions in the background. I think Harold Lloyd did his stunts.
He did.
I'm not sure. They're known for that as well. Yeah. Nope. And I see Blank Widow. Yep. That was Scarlett Johansson. Okay. Well, that's kind of where we're at. What I have here for us tonight. So, Mike, you have anything you want to wrap up with? Head out before we head out.
No, this was fun. I mean, it's an underappreciated because it draws so many fans and so many makes so much money at the box office. But I think people that are fans of action films, I think they would look at them differently if they knew everything that goes into it. There's a great clip of behind the scenes of Tom Cruise in the last Mission Impossible doing the motorcycle stunt off the side of the cliff, and just the preparation and let's do it again, let's try this, and it's like, Jesus, it's just how that genre has progressed even in the last 60 years. So, yeah,
I would say just in the last few years, because they have to constantly up that ante, because now you can't do something that's been done before, and I would assume the further you get into that coefficient changes, it's like anything else. If you walk out in the street, 5 times, there's a possibility you might get hit. You walk out in the street 1,000 times, and that coefficient goes up. And I would assume same holds true.
How do they get insurance? Very, very difficultly. Usually, when the producers insure a film, there are a lot of stipulations. Can't do this, can't do that. Like when Harrison Ford makes movies, like he can't fly his helicopter, he can't fly his plane. Anything that would cause the movie to stop being made. And like I said at the beginning, Tom Cruise produces a lot of his own stuff, so he's self-insuring himself, or he knows a good insurance agent who's gonna write up a policy, because you can say, well, Tom, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. Okay, I'm also going to jump, drive a motorcycle over a cliff. What? That's not in your policy. Yeah, it's.
Oh, and you know what, Mike? Before we do leave, I do at least want to address or acknowledge today is, what you say, the 50th anniversary of the death of Bruce Lee. Is that correct?
Yes, 50 years ago today, Bruce Lee passed away.
I know less about his death than I do his son's death. So he died. It was under mysterious circumstances as well, correct?
Yes, supposedly he had headaches, and then he took a nap and never woke up. And it's all. If you ever see the movie Dragon, with Jason Scott Lee as I'm sorry, not Jason Scott Lee, Jason Lee. Yeah, Jason Scott Lee is okay. One of them played Bruce Lee. The other one's in all the Kevin Smith films. But they kind of look at how supposedly he was cursed because he came over to America and taught kung fu to the round eyes. And then supposedly it carries over to the firstborn son in that family, and obviously Brandon Lee, being killed on the set of The Crow. But he was, and Brandon Lee was turned into an action star.
Yes.
But Bruce Lee never really got to see his greatest success, which was Enter the Dragon.
Sure.
He just, and he was so smart. There is I think it's one of the 30 for 30 documentaries on ESPN. You probably find ESPN Plus, but it's called Be Water, and it just chronicles Bruce Lee, and he was such an intelligent man, and he spoke so profound, his different philosophies, his different ideas, and the title, water. If you're trying to get into a rock, rock is tough. You can't get into it, but water eventually will seep into a rock. So if you want to get things done in life, be water, be pliable, be able to do that extra stuff. And it's just I have no idea what the future would have had for Bruce Lee, but obviously he created, because of him, there was a whole new genre in the 70s, the Kung Fu films. They were popular over in Asia, but Enter the Dragon is what brought them over to the attention of, the United States.
Yeah, when I think of Bruce Lee, as far as, where would his career have gone, I think you kind of almost could have, as far as the pathway, maybe look at a parallel with someone like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who, again, came over from bodybuilding, was very determined, whatever, and decided he wanted to make it. He was, had that determination, and that determination that followed him through with his disciplines and with his weightlifting. I think is what carried him over into his action, his action movies, and his time that he spent and made a name for himself. I think Bruce Lee probably would have followed that same pathway, because that same determination, like you said, philosophy, because that's what he has. It wasn't just he was crazy physically, or he was just really good at martial arts or physical feats, but the mental side of it was there. The educational side of it was there. I mean, he was very, very intense person, personality-wise, and what he believed in and how driven he was. If you ever watch interviews on him, just very amazing individual. Yeah.
Did they shoot that scene in The Crow, or was it deleted after his accidental death? The footage exists. The producer has it, and he says it will never see the light of day. So
just out of respect, I would
yeah.
imagine. Yeah. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that someone is attempting to remake The Crow.
I think I want to say there was like a remake like 15 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
And then I think they're trying to do another one, but yeah.
I think they're trying to do a reboot of it. If I'm not mistaken.
I'm not familiar with the books or the story. I like the movie. They had to film some of the, they had to refilm some of the stuff with Brandon Lee to finish it. But yeah, I don't know. I just get some original ideas. Hollywood, stop remaking stuff.
Yeah, it is. It seems to be the road that we're on right now. We're seeing a lot of these remakes and reboots, and like we've talked about before. It's unfortunate because you just lightning in a bottle. It's going to happen one time. So no matter what you do, number one, you're going to detract from the original, and number two, it's just not going to reproduce. It's not going to happen. But at any rate, well, Mike, is there anything you want to take us out with, or are you guys at home? Any suggestions? Just had The Crow. Good soundtrack there.
It's a good soundtrack. Play the Mission Impossible theme.
Ooh, there we go.
Yeah. Alexa, play the theme from Mission Impossible.
Here's Mission Impossible theme, movie trailer mix by Dominic Hauser, Lalo Schifrin on Amazon Music.
Started out as a TV show, right, Mike?
Yep. They also use it for the opening credits of the films because you can't not use the Mission Impossible theme.
Oh, sure. It'd be like watching a Star Wars film and, not having John Williams come on.
Everybody have a great week. Thanks for joining us. Next week, Let's Talk Jaws Live. Maybe we can work on our hope for a guest today and have them next week. We'll see.
Yes. That would be excellent. Yeah, very much so. All right, guys. Well, hey, thanks a lot. Thank you for joining and hopping on in. And we'll be back again next Thursday. So keep you posted. Thanks, guys, for stopping out.
Have a good night.
Care.
A good weekend.
And enjoy Friday Eve.